So this is the last of 3 videos on calculating density using the equations of Rebecca Lange and her coworkers. And in a previous video, we looked at calculating all these quantities here, where we ended up with the density in this column CB. Let's zoom in a little bit. And for a chaos Crag sample, we got 2.29. But how do we know that that number is any good? It's always good to go back to the original data presented by the author and see if we can reproduce their values. So what I've done here is I've taken this column here and then done a fill down command, and I have entered 2 compositions, the paralkaline rhyolite and the ugandite, which are shown over in this column here and this column here. So if I make copies of those, I've already done this before starting the video, the recording, you could see that over here I've entered their paralkaline rhyolite composition here, copying their values for Fe2O3 and FeO, and not worrying too much about varying the oxygen fugacity relative to nickel-nickel oxide. They don't have water at this point, so we're not really checking that calculation. I believe their plotted values are at 1 bar, so we're not checking for the pressure correction. They're not giving elevated pressures examples of elevated pressure calculations. We're not going to be able to check those. Here's the ugandite composition, and I've entered values of 1,000 degrees centigrade, and then 1 bar, which is the same as 0.001 kilobars. So let's come back to their table 4. So we've entered these compositions, and if we've entered them correctly, then we should reproduce the densities that are plotted here. For the paralkaline rhyolite at 1,000 degrees, we get 2.40, and that's right about what they're plotting here. And then for the ugandite, we get 2.82, and that's right about what they're getting for their ugandite values, also at 1,000 degrees. For the andesite, to get a little bit lower of a density, and I'm wondering if this chart is actually a copy of this one. They look very similar to one another. Now, they do have similar amounts of total iron, but the silica contents are much, much different from one another. And so I'm not 100% sure that this is really not an accidental copy of paralkaline rhyolite. If it is, that I'm calculating the andesite densities incorrectly, but I'm able to recover all of the other ones. So just as kind of a warning to any of you who are trying to reproduce these calculations, do your best to try to make sure you can reproduce the densities that are shown in their table 4 and the various figures, but just be warned, at the very least, I was not able to reproduce the andesite values. It got slightly different values than what are plotted here.